Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond Belief. I'm Gavura Davis from Aish Global, and I am joined by my new dear wannabe best friend, Michal Oshman, an incredible, super awesome rock star author, mother of four, head of company culture and diversity and inclusion at TikTok for Europe and the Middle East, formerly high executive at Facebook, executive coach, leadership developer, also officer in the IDF, and
God.
just all around incredible person. And I just finished reading her new book, What Would You Do If You Were Not Afraid? And like so many of us, this is a question that I think we all want to hear the answer to. So thank you for asking us the question, challenging us to understand ourselves. Can you tell us a little bit about what motivated the book?
Oh my gosh, of course. And I'm on such a high to be here with you today, Gavura. I mean, I can feel the energy. I know we're very far away, distance kind of, on the globe, but I really feel you and your energy, and I feel like really welcomed to the show. So thank you. What led me write the book is my personal journey. It's my personal story. And actually, the way you described like my CV, when I know it kind of sounds quite impressive and degrees and wonderful things. And yes, I made lots of great achievements in my life. And at the same time, my whole life, or at least until the age of 38, I suffered in a way that no one had any idea about. So I was highly functional, highly productive, but inside I was extremely anxious, extremely fearful, and sad. So there was a big kind of difference between how I appeared maybe to the world, even to my parents, even to my friends, and how I was feeling inside. And the way I was feeling inside was very negative.
Wow. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey from negativity towards enlightenment that transpired before the book was written? And I think also it's so refreshing. It's such a gift that you're so open and honest about your challenges with emotional health, mental health, spiritual health, especially in this fake book world that we live in. When anybody were to see you, even I'm sure the people who knew you best, we see beautiful, vibrant, successful, not just externally climbing up the corporate ladder, but married to the love of your life, your soulmate, mother of at the time 3, now 4 healthy, beautiful children. And I think that so often anyone would see you and even like get to know you would think, wow, Michal, she's the superstar.
Well, thank
And
you.
yet here you are with a lot to say about what was beneath the surface.
So you're already my friend because you like keeping things real, and I like keeping things real as well. So I only keep it real, right? That's, I think, a gift most of the time. So I felt really guilty about feeling so miserable and fearful inside, because I did, as you said, I had so many things to celebrate and to enjoy. I wasn't enjoying them. I was sure that every moment this whole thing is going to end, that my husband's going to leave me. That every day I woke up and I thought like this horrible thing is about to happen. And I for most of my life, I thought it was connected to my upbringing. So I share in the book how I was raised by my parents, but also my grandparents who were Holocaust survivors, and they were post-traumatized. And I guess my first memories in life is hearing my grandmother screaming at night of the fear of the Nazis coming and taking me. I think I was the love of her life, and I was her repair after all that she's been through. My grandmother Hannah managed to save herself by jumping off the train on the way to Auschwitz. Her instinct told her that something really bad was going to happen, and she squeezed herself through the cracks, and she saved herself in a. I mean, that's a completely different story. But I was raised with my grandparents telling me, especially my grandmother, that this can happen again, and I should be ready for that. And I think that only by itself is already, grows of, very objectively fear and anxiety. And it didn't help that my father was for many, many years, maybe a couple of decades, the head forensic pathologist of Israel. And through him and his job, I was also exposed to death from a very, very young age. And, all parents most parents do their best. I know my parents did their best. They made a couple of mistakes, and one of them is that they didn't shield me maybe enough from all the things that were going on with my grandparents and with my father's job. And just death was much more of a thing than life for I guess the first 40 years of my life. So I did all these things, but inside I felt very unhappy and very, very fearful. And I tried to treat this. So I was going to therapy. After my military service, I realized that I'm not mentally health in a good way. Like I realized that there was a problem. I had all sorts of thoughts and things that concerned me. And I managed to open up to my girlfriends in the army. And when I saw their reaction, I knew that definitely something not okay. And I started going to therapy for about, 15, 16 years. And therapy took me to a certain degree of let's say, growth. I developed the skill of self-awareness, but it didn't help me heal. I was still stuck in my anxiety very much.
So what do you think has led, do you feel that I have so many questions. Do you feel that you're cured of these challenges? And is it a moving target? Did you one day see the light and, wake up and transform overnight? Or what has been your healing journey after therapy ended?
So that's the word, that's a journey, as you said. So at the age of 38, I had so much to celebrate and enjoy, and I wasn't in that place. There was even a phase when I was really trying to control from bad things going on. I was trying to even control aging. I went heavily in like anti-aging treatments, and I kind of froze my face with Botox, and I embarrassed myself. I was one of those women when you kind of see she's looking kind of overly done, and you're like, oh, why is she doing that? She's like, she doesn't need it. I couldn't. I got obsessed. I got obsessed with all sorts of things, with OCD, with counting, with, rituals. I didn't know what to do with myself. And at the same time, so much energy had to be taken into these jobs and being a mother and, and being representative and all those pressures that I also kind of put on myself. And there was one Shabbat in the morning, which back then I called it Saturday, one specific Saturday when I felt concerned for myself. And I also, as I said, I felt ashamed of myself, right? Why can't I get myself out of this in my head?
The shame, unfortunately, just compounds everything. Like, I have it all. Obviously you're highly intelligent. What was missing?
I knew, but you're touching it, because I knew something was missing. I couldn't say, I knew it wasn't a physical thing. I knew I was never into like things to buy, or I knew it was something else. And actually there was a time when I explored Buddhism and I was trying, so I knew it was something special, but I just couldn't I had no idea what it was. And, I'm obviously Jewish. I was raised in Israel, Tel Aviv, I guess, secular, family, very, very respectful of being Jewish. And but not practicing anything that has to do with Judaism. And I had no idea that Judaism has, and it's not the right word to use, but just to kind of, for us to be on the same page, kind of psychology. I had no idea that there is there's a psychology within Judaism that really, there's 1,000 years of way to heal the soul and to heal the heart. I had no idea I had a soul. I thought it was all random. It was all by chance. So my whole outlook at life was very, there less meaning, I guess. But there was one Saturday morning when I was in a very low place, and I went to Google. So social media does help a lot when you sometimes need answers to questions. And I Googled depression, anxiety, joy, happiness. And for some reason, and we all know that everything happens for a reason, I Googled Judaism. And those search words led me to a professor of psychology who also happens to be a lady that is, follows Chabad teaching and Lubavitch reading. And I knew that she was a psychologist that also looked at things from a Jewish point of view. And I just sent her an email and I said, hey, I'm suffering. What do you suggest that I do? Like, what's the cure? Give me a direction. And that was like the opening to know that there is the answer is going to be in Judaism, but I didn't know exactly where it was going to be. But that was the first step.
Wow. So Judaism, you feel, was that sort of, it would be ironic to call it a secret since you grew up Jewish, you grew up in Israel, but secret to you, meaning practical, living, applicable wisdom was not something you associated with Judaism prior.
For me, Judaism was how people dress, what they eat, kosher, not kosher. It was restrictions. And therefore, it had nothing to do with me. What I discovered is that Judaism is so much more than that, that it's about how you live your life meaningfully, that these tensions that I was feeling inside of me, they're a vehicle for growth, that I'm not supposed to be perfect. I was raised with huge amount of pressure to be perfect for myself also, but also for my surrounding. When I realized that I was never supposed to be perfect, and actually the perfect way is to be learning and growing and making mistakes. And I realized that actually we're supposed to live in joy, because we're in my home, because there was so much sadness, I actually thought that being happy is not okay. And that's why for sometimes my personal relationship, my intimacy with my husband, I actually thought you're not supposed to be enjoying, because so many bad things happen or could happen. So it just completely, I realized that that Judaism is about living with joy.
So what does that mean to you? How do you live with joy? How do you apply that to daily living?
So, you asked before if I kind of, my anxiety is not anymore who of course it's still who I am. It's part of my story. And I talk about a moment in the book. I share this moment when I actually spoke with a life coach. And he said to me, do you know what, Michal, if you could cut anxiety off you, as if it was never there, all the memories, the dead bodies that you saw, your grandmother screaming out, cut, not part of you, there's a new version of you, would you do it? And I was like, it was more powerful than any other therapy session I had. Like, would I do it? Like, would people cut a part of them that is giving them pain or sorrow, or, making their life less joyous, but is still part of them? And one of my aha moments was actually when I said, no, I'm not cutting. I'm not cutting my memories. I'm not cutting my anxiety. I don't know who I am without them. And at the same time, discovering that nothing has happened by chance. I always thought I was kind of stuck in I was born by chance to my parents. That everything, as I said, was by chance. There was nothing behind it. When I realized that I was born exactly to the family that I should have been born to, and I'm exactly the daughter that my parents needed to have for our own separate journeys. And then there's so much meaning that I just can't see at the moment. It gave me a lot of confidence, a lot of bitachon, that I'm on the right track, and this is going to all make sense. And by the way, as a mother now, I believe that this bitachon, this confidence, is probably the biggest gift we can give our children, just to feel safe. There is something that's much greater than all of us, and we're safe. And these roots, I think I just started growing my roots at the age of 38 in the last 7 years.
Well, yes, certainly every day until then was part of your journey, and you wouldn't be who you were without those first 38 years. It's interesting because you're using a beautiful Hebrew word, bitachon, which Israelis sometimes know as, police, security, because the word right security in Hebrew is bitachon, but it's really a Jewish word, a biblical word, and you feel that has brought a measure of peace and comfort and stability to your life. And it's very important as parents that, as you said, that we share that with our children. So since you are an elephant hunter, it's interesting. Really read the book. It's so beautiful and so fun and such a beautiful read. It's interesting because I want to ask you about what we call in English the G word. And sadly, amongst Jews, it is quite an elephant. But when you say bitachon, which is often translated as trust or faith, similar to the word emunah, if the viewers are familiar with that word. What is it faith or trust in?
Wow. So this is, Givur, I'm not an educator. I can only speak from my
Do you
own.
mind if I interrupt you, which interviewers are not supposed to do? I believe very strongly that you are an educator.
Okay.
And as I was listening and reading your book, I texted it to 20 of my students saying, oh, you know that concept we were discussing? Read this chapter because you do it masterfully, succinctly, with wisdom, humor, insight. So if you don't mind me disagreeing with you, I feel very much that you are an educator and that God, because I do believe in God, is gifting the world with Jewish wisdom through your book.
Oh,
so talk about the G.
Okay.
And
so,
what do you have bitachon in?
So I have, okay, so these are super deep concepts. Nachon Gevura, like this is like,
right.
this is like,
I know, but you're so good at explaining them.
This is serious stuff. So when I grew up thinking that, when I grew up, I remember thinking there is more. I didn't have the vocabulary, right? I felt that there is no way, because I saw a lot of death. I remember thinking in a very young age, there is no way that all of these feelings and love that were in my grandparents' hearts and essence, or the other people that I knew, that like, there's no way that they're going away. I felt it. But then when I came to my father, who conducted autopsy for about 40,000 bodies in his career, and I asked him, is there something in the body that is special and that, it doesn't go away? And he said, no. He said, we're only flesh, and that's it. And I think I felt that there was a neshama. I felt that there was a soul. I felt there was something that comes from somewhere and it's godly and continues after. I had that feeling, but I didn't have educating, or I didn't have someone to guide me on that. And I think when you think that everything ends when the body ends, it doesn't give you much bitachon, because it feels so 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. And when I discovered that we actually carry in ourselves godly souls, and we are here with our unique souls to do something meaningful, that evolves a lot of, emunah and a lot of bitachon. You feel like you're coming from somewhere and you're going somewhere, and you have this opportunity to do something meaningful. So suddenly, and I'm not saying that I don't care about Botox, and I still do it, but suddenly the importance or the weight or the meaning is much more on the neshama and who I am and what I came here to do, and acknowledging the fact or accepting the fact that I have like good sides in me and less good, and they're always in tension. Then suddenly you have this like new outlook, a new way to look at life. And I think this bitachon that there is, G word, God, Hashem, and it's not just about us. It got me less obsessed about myself, because listen, a lot of the achievements were for my ego. Like, let's just be honest, and it's not bad. You grow out of your ego, and it's good enough. But I think I just pivoted maybe to one of the directions too much, and didn't pull myself to the side of emunah. And the interesting thing was bringing it to my family.
Mm-hmm. How'd that go?
How much time do you have?
Well, you're still married. You're still on speaking terms. Married. Thank God.
So as I told you already, I mean, we obviously had a conversation before. I wasn't feeling, because there was this guy, well, we all have heartbreaks, right? But I had a miserable experience with love. It was very hard for me to trust after that. And I think I entered marriage, very not confident not comfortable in my skin, literally. And not confident. And I think it brought up certain behaviors in me. When you're not confident, you often behave in a certain way. And I think that, again, emunah and our faith in marriage and in the potential of how we can be so strong with each other is also something that, our home really benefited from. But going back to your question, when I started...
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for Homie in chapter 5, because, like, thank God it was, it was part of the journey.
It was
that breakup, for those of you that haven't read the book yet.
Oh my gosh, you're so good. I have to be that guy that the day I thought he was going to propose, he left me, right? And he didn't just leave me. He said, I thought about who I would take with me to a desert island, and it's not you.
Ah, my heart, I was feeling the knife like deeper and deeper with that sentence.
But you know,
That
now we're smiling.
rejection. That was
Rejection.
flat out rejection.
But it was so much more. It was crushing my heart. I gave him my heart, right? I loved him. You know, now when I'm 45, I look back and I broke some people's hearts, and but when you're 23 and you're in love, or it doesn't matter at what age, and you give your everything to someone and they tell you, we don't want to be with you, and we wouldn't take you, you know, to a desert island, and we don't want to live their lives with you. It's horrible. It's horrible. And like all your security and all your confidence, and doesn't matter, you think it's going to happen again and again. So I entered with these experiences, you know, my later experience in life. And it took me a lot to kind of be able to, you know, I guess, build my confidence again. But the wonderful thing is that, again, when you have faith, it's almost like you can make things happen. So when I started educating myself about Judaism and spiritual Judaism, I brought it home. And like at that point, I think we were married about 15 years. And my husband, Yair, he has a lot of respect for Judaism. But again, we weren't doing anything at home. We weren't doing Kiddush or Shabbat. We were living our lives kind of, you know, knowing that we're Jewish. And when I started bringing these principles, I came to it from I guess, from emunah, from faith, from, you know, feeling that connection. And my husband came to it from a sense of, we're living out of Israel. We're Israeli, we're Jewish. How can we bring to our children a sense of identity? So we kind of came to it from a different angle, but then we met not in the middle because there were different tensions, but we met in a place when we realized if we're going to do this well, it's actually really going to add value to our family life. So we brought it in an interesting way. We tried to we didn't approach the children of like, you have to do this. Or it's like, hey, we've been on this 3,000 years journey. You want to hear about it? You want to hear what our role here, or what we could do? And, you know, it took months, but slowly, we got the children on the journey with us.
That's amazing. And I know that, you know, in my work and in Aisha's work, and, you know, I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations, especially since the book came out, that many of us did not grow up religious, right? And, you know, I don't want to get stuck in semantics, but observant. Mm-hmm. Most of the Jews in America, you know, the UK is a little bit different, but mostly not. Certainly most Jews in Israel. And I think it's interesting because Jews, reject Judaism with a very elementary understanding of what Judaism is. And I feel that your book should be required reading. If you're going to reject Judaism, know what it says first. And it's a great summary of some really key, meaningful Jewish concepts. And everyone hears it differently. So I think one of the challenges of sort of, you said, coming to it, you and your husband both came to it from a different perspective, in a different place. What would you advise couples? Spirituality is such an individual process, such an individual journey, and each will speak to ourselves. It will speak to everyone in its own language, in its own way. How can a family incorporate Judaism in a way that supports the other person, no matter what their opinions are?
It's such an important question. I'm sure you can answer it much more than I can because of all the, I guess, hundreds and thousands of people and families that you see. I can share from my own experience. I think one of the things that allowed us to be on this journey, as you say, and stay married, and we're joking, but we're serious, is actually, again, a principle in Judaism, which is Shlombait. Now, how do you say Shlombait in English?
Peace in the home is what we translate it as, but it's the pulse on the marriage.
Yeah.
You know, bringing peace.
So like if Shlombait, which is, you know, as you said, peace of the home and the marriage, if that is your anchor, and listen, we all know that marriage isn't a walk in the park, right? But if Shlombait, if keeping that peace, which means we respect each other, we care about each other's opinions, but we also have our own opinions, and we want them to be, you know, listened to. If the anchor is the peace in the house, in the home, between us, that already solves a lot of conflict. Because when let's say there were times when I wanted to do something which was a bit more practicing, and it didn't work for my husband. And I had many choices, but mainly I had to go head and head, maybe do that mitzvah, but risking how my husband is feeling about me. And by the way, by the whole journey, or knowing that it's the longer, shorter way. And we have such a long way to go together. And I need to do what's right for Shlombait. So I learned I actually think, I don't know, we should call Yair, he's with the kids outside. I want to think that I'm potentially a better wife. Maybe that's not the right terminology, but
maybe we should ask him not when it's live.
Yeah, maybe not too live. So first of all, if peace in the house is your anchor, a lot of good things will happen. If you realize it's for the longer, shorter way, meaning that it's a long journey, and sometimes when we try to make shortcuts, it actually takes us much longer. So it's always better to take the longer way with peace, step by step. We're not rushing to anywhere. And that eventually becomes the shorter way because you get to where you want to get in a meaningful way. And then I think, at least, my rabbi, I don't have like rabbis that I go for advice, but I have the rabbi that kind of taught me. And I always come to him as like, I'm not keeping all the mitzvot. And like always kind of, again, trying to be perfect. And he was like, are you making one mitzvah? Is there one mitzvah that gives you energy? Yes. What is it? Shabbat. I said, like, I'm a high on Shabbat. He was like, that's it. Perfect. The whole world. And just kind of acknowledging the fact that you don't have to do a million things, but if you want to bring something to the home and it's that one thing that gives both of you energy, go for it. Try it.
I think it's so important for people to understand that it's not all or nothing. And each Jewish ritual, each mitzvah, each concept has its own intrinsic value that has the power and potential to really upgrade your life and increase that inner peace. So it's interesting because I kind of got from your book that you feel raised without religion, raised without spirituality, raised without belief in something other than the here now physical world that we live in, led to some emotional turmoil and pain in your life. Do you think that that's true universally?
I don't know. And it's so hard to put the thing because kind of our life is so complicated. Like we go through so many things. My assumption is if I did have more spirituality, faith, that, security, safety, bitachon, let's say, I want to think that I may have been kind of less anxious, but you know what? I can't prove that. I do know that today, when I have it in my life, I'm more joyous. I'm less anxious. So I can only say from the moment bringing this into my life. And I also know, as you said, every mitzvah, everything has its own energy. For me, I'm all about Shabbat. I am really like, it improved my life in so many ways, not just my life, my whole family. The fact that actually within this crazy life with these jobs and doing things and trying to achieve and doesn't matter what happens at a certain time on a Friday afternoon, all the madness, all the chaos, all the drama in the house starts kind of going down, right? The energy just changed. Of course, there's like, did you do this? Did you cook this? Right. Of course, I'm not going to paint this beautiful picture. There's also some kind of preparation to get to that point. But the fact that all of us know that there's a certain hour in the week in a repeated way when we put away our electronics, and again, it took us time to get there, and we're letting go of the noise, and we're just within the house, between ourselves, talking, sometimes arguing, but like really communicating with each other, that eye contact. I just think it's just the most kind of, it's like, it's amazing. It's healing, it's meaningful, it's important. It's for the children, it's so meaningful. And again, as you said, you don't, like, for people like on their journey, it doesn't mean you have to keep the whole 24 hours, but like one Friday night, or one moment when you know that you're connecting to yourself and to your family in a different way. And by the way, also to myself, right? When you can actually be, now being with yourself can sometimes be difficult. Right. So again, because you and I are all about real, sometimes it means that you really are facing your deepest thoughts and whatever dynamic is going in at home. And sometimes Shabbat can be, a time when like it's a call for
Wait,
action.
there's dynamics in families? What?
But you know what? But I also think that makes it even more clever, because we're almost like encouraged to take a moment, like take a minute, have a look in yourself and around. Is this what you wanted it to be? Like, is this going like in the right direction? And if not, what are you going to do about it from Sunday? So I
Wow.
think it's amazing.
Well, on that same theme, I love so many qualities, so many midot that you possess, but one of my favorite ones really is your humility. And I know that you like maybe wouldn't say this is the most impressive thing about you because that's the incredible kind of person you are, but you are a very high-powered executive. And you have spent, the past 20, 30 years in very high by sort of society standard um, places. And included in that comes a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I would imagine that I don't want to know how many I do want to know actually, how many emails do you get a day?
You get also hundreds of them. Like, right?
I do, but like, I don't know. Everyone knows that it takes me a while to respond to them and they give me a lot of leniency. But I'm curious, how did you go from that transition of boom, 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 boom? I mean, you only got where you're at because I'm sure you're a highly responsive person and a highly intelligent and responsible person. So what does that look like to, let's say Shabbat comes in pretty early in the winter in London. You're for, I don't know how much time you turn your phone off for, but even let's say an hour in the beginning, and especially if you're an anxious person, weren't you worried? Like, what if the boss calls? What if it's a client? I mean, how did you maneuver that? Because I believe that a lot of people think they're too busy for Shabbat. They're too, they wouldn't say they're too important, but things have to get done. We have to be available in our modern world. And especially now, it used to be the email etiquette was 24 hours. If someone texts you, they basically expect an immediate response. And Shabbat is not really conducive to that.
Everything you say is so like what we all go through and so familiar. So again, you're kind of hitting the nail. Yes. So I have so much to say about it, but I'll try to be really focused. I think because people are thinking that they're so important, that's exactly why they need Shabbat, to remind them that there's something much bigger than what they think is important as this week's tasks or goals at work. And I'm not undermining the importance of work and career and all of that. It wasn't, I talk in the book how I kind of came out at work as keeping Shabbat, right? And how scared I was when I told my boss that I keep Shabbat, especially since it was the first day at work. And I think because I had the sparkle in my eye, and because I knew it was something that was good. When you know something's good, you just say it with confidence. Like no one can. And when I said to my manager, and I was quite lucky, I guess, that I keep this day of Shabbat. He never heard about this before and what it means. It was very odd for him. Maybe I don't think he met someone that keeps Shabbat before. But I explained to him how important it is, and he used to send me messages of Shabbat Shalom every single Friday for the 5 years. My Facebook manager.
I loved that boss that asked you what Shabbat is and then sent you Shabbat Shalom.
Every Friday, Shabbat Shalom. And before Yom Kippur, he was like, he didn't know what to say. So he would send me like happy fast. But it doesn't matter. He sent me like these messages trying to show me that he cares about who I am and what matters to me. And I know it's not the same in every place. But, there were moments when I felt I couldn't fully be myself. And, I don't want to paint like this perfect picture. Like when you really follow who you are, sometimes, you'll face rejection or less comfortable feelings. But what I know I can manage and control most days is myself. So this is self-control, to be able to shut your phone, to put it in we have like this locker that all of us put it in, and we say, and like we let go. It's a let go exercise, right? Let go. And yes, I know that emails are coming in and messages. Once you do it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, you realize doesn't matter that you're not on email. Like, I'm sorry to ruin it.
The world survives.
everyone.
TikTok can survive without Michal for 25 hours.
No, sorry. And, you know, many others can, you know, so that again is a discovery, right? That it's fine to be offline for 25 hours a week. Nothing's going to happen. But as I said, I do believe, Gevura, that people can take it step by step if they want to, right? I personally, for me, Shabbat is my day. It is my day. I love wine. I love food. Like, I wait all week. I wait 3 days before Shabbat, and then I'm still on a high 3 days after, which is kind of pretty much covers the week for me. But like, people have their own thing. You spoke about.
Do you think that Shabbat makes or empowers you to be a better professional and a better mom?
I know. Listen, the way I think it helps me raise. You know, I'm. Sometimes I think like everyone. I have my days. Oh, I'm a good mom. I'm not a good mom. You know, we all go through this. You know. Trying to do our best, but not sure if it's landing. What I know Shabbat gave my family is that I just see my kids for all those hours in a row, right? Like, instead of
it's
seeing
your
them,
presence.
It's my presence. Like, we're in the living room, all of us, people coming in, out. COVID was less so. And we are like interacting, right?
Living in the living room.
In the living room, right? And listen, I also work, I prepare for this. So, like, Gevura, before Friday comes, I do read the parasha, and I try to think for myself, how does Parashat HaShavua, the week's portion, how can I bring it home, right? What is the story? What's the angle? Because, you know, I know one or two things about content, I hope. So, like, how does the content of the week's portion, how can I bring the content home? I have 2 teenagers and 2 younger children. How can I bring it to them around stuff that are going on at school, around, you know, life itself, around what's going on in their friendships? So I always try to bring it home. And when I'm successful, when Yair and I are successful, then one of the children would say, whoa, like, so this is like an ancient problem, right? And they realize it actually takes some of the anxiety off them, because we realize that the things that we deal with today, it didn't start from Sigmund Freud's time. Like, people have forever been feeling jealous. People forever.
Oh, I thought we could talk about jealousy, because one of my favorite parts of the book, and you mentioned Yom Kippur, and I wanted to bring it up then, was the Yom Kippur, where you know, you were so excited to be so holy and to pray, and you returned to Israel so you could experience the spirituality in the air, and you were just building up to being one with God and connecting to yourself. And then, you know, you saw the woman in Shul who you were jealous of
for years.
And all of your for years, decades, and all of the elevated feelings apparently went out the door, but they didn't. And what I find so fascinating, I mean, I thought it was fascinating for several reasons. One, I found your honesty and vulnerability so refreshing. But 2, you know, just to name another elephant, I'm sure you're the person that a lot of people would see and think, oh, Michal Oshman, now add author to her resume of perfection, and pretty and smart and great parents and 4 kids. So this sort of dichotomy of what the world looks like and how we interact with other people, and that part of ourselves that, I don't want to say strive. Sometimes it comes from a good place, maybe not, but can you talk to us about how you worked through your own jealousy, and what you would say to people who look at the Michal Oshman show and have envy or purpose anxiety, because, like, you're living your purpose and they want that?
So, this is the hard stuff.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's good. I have, like you, hundreds of conversations with people, right? A week, a month, and thank God people open up. And I'm sensing that many of us really suffer from jealousy from comparing, right? And because we live in this world of, by default, we're like, there's so much put in front of us. We're like, oh,
And
how am I?
social media amplifies it.
Right, and you see it like, oh my god, that looks like, and that first Yom Kippur, when I really prepared so hard, Gevura, I was like studying, and I'm so afraid of fasting because I'm a foodie, so how am I not going to eat? Like mamash, I was so anxious about not eating. I prepared and did practice, like really. I'm always prepare. I'm not a lastminute.com person. I prepared for Yom Kippur. I arrived, as you said, and I looked like clean and white and and in Israel. And I sit there in shul, and the only thing I can think about is this girl that I know from high school, and she's like amazing, and she's tan, and she's this, and she's that, and I'm looking at her body language and how she like gestures for her husband, and not that my husband's not amazing, but just I choose to think that their relationship,
And she was even patient with her kids. How annoying!
And yeah, and one of her kids was like, and she was like really patient with him, giving that godly smile to him.
The whole perfect package. I'm sure she has no challenges.
So I look at her and I can't stop thinking about her, and I'm holding, and I'm trying to daven. I can't. The only thing, and anyone that davens in her life, they know that these when machshavot, these thoughts go inside, you get so annoyed with yourself, and you try to stop, and you get angry, but then you think about it more. So I was very disappointed in myself. And when I walked back home with Yair from shul, I said, I was devastated. And I said, I'm only thinking about her. Like, and of course he knew her, but like, Yair, bless him, he doesn't have an issue with comparing himself. It was like more my thing. And Yair normalized it. And he said, what do you think? Everyone in shul looks at each other. What do you think? Like, who trying to say, it's human nature. And I think, Yetzer Hara, these, evil inclination, these jealousy, it's all also part of how we're wired. It's not like separate to who we are. It's not something we're completely trying to get rid of. I do believe, and it's a lot of practice, that, we have an opportunity to say, okay, I'm looking at this woman. What's going on there for me? Like, what is it about her that's, giving me this trigger or this jealousy? How can I pivot it to something positive? And also, how can I put a positive thought to push out the jealousy thought? And it's a lot of hard work. That's why I'm saying, I still wear my jeans. I'm not covering my hair, but all the work, or a lot of the work that I do, is inside me. Do you know? It's like,
the inner work.
It's the inner work. And like, you can fill a day just from the inner work, right? And you spoke about like, how do you manage corporate life with personal life? I wake up in the morning, I say Modani, I daven, I do Birkat HaShachar. Of course, the Netilat Yadayim, right? I do the morning, and then I jump on a leadership meeting call with TikTok, and I do completely every day, Gashmi, Chomer, material. How do we make our platform meaningful for people and bringing joy? I really think they're complementary. I don't see anything contradictory about those two. I don't think you should do one or the either. I think you can do both. And I will argue that if anyone says that it's not possible.
So you can both experience the pain of jealousy, then the shame of jealousy, while still finding a way to be spiritual and connect to God.
I think being spiritual,
in your Yom Kippur experience.
I think, maybe I'm wrong, Gevura. I don't know if this is like really true, but the way I tell it to myself, I think for me, being spiritual is acknowledging that there are parts of me that are jealousy or not amazing. And part of my spiritual job is to tame them, overcome them. And if I failed one day, the next day is another opportunity for correction. And when I went back to davening in the afternoon of that Yom Kippur, I was, a better version of me.
You showed up differently.
I showed up different. And that's why I love, again, in Yadut, and no one knows this, that in Judaism, as you said, it's not all or nothing. And if you get something wrong, you don't get punished for it or like ruined. Oh my gosh, it ruined you. It's like literally the moment after is a moment to just, to just repair, to grow. And it just, it's actually positive. But as you said, because most people don't know this, and it was a secret to me, they are more judgmental on spiritual Judaism, I guess.
Well, you get the Rebbitzin stamp of approval. That is truth. That is exactly what Hashem wants. And I think that some of the ideas that you share in the book normalizes the struggle
Mm.
and gives us permission not only to be our imperfect selves, but to really celebrate that that's how God made us. And that struggle, that striving, that desire, a word that you used and something that I really admire about you is self-awareness.
Yeah.
Meaning sometimes people, when they're jealous, think, oh, and I hope that something bad happens to her, or she's probably not so great anyways, and like relish in, had she have yelled at her kid, people would some people would celebrate that, like, oh, good, she's not as perfect as I thought. And I think that, something that you have said and in your book that you write about over and over again requires honesty and self-reflection and the ability to self-challenge.
Yeah.
And to understand that this is part of the process and that this isn't something to shun or to feel guilty about, but to lean into, something to embrace, to engage in.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think if it's okay with you, I want to move the discussion a little bit to social media, because I think that, and we're asking you as a person, as Michal Oshman, the author and the thinker and the student of Judaism, not as the head of company culture of diversity and inclusion at TikTok for the Middle East and Asia, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I'm asking you as a mom. I'm asking you as a self-healer. I'm asking you as a spiritual seeker. How do we raise children, including ourselves, our biggest child? How do we raise ourselves with that inner peace and that self-acceptance that we're craving in a world dominated by images, filters? If the potential to be jealous always existed, social media amplified that to, comparisons on steroids. And you have two teenagers. What do you make of, how can we be happy in this social media world?
I hear you. And it's completely, of course, a legit question. And as you said, a mother to teenager, it's very much on my mind. Like many other things when I think about my children, their well-being, how they're growing up, et cetera, et cetera. I think one of the beautiful things about Judaism is that it shows its relevance with time, right? So it's the same Torah and the same principles for thousands of years. And the Torah and the wisdom in the Torah is giving us tools to navigate all different kind of ways of living and challenges and whatever happened to us in the thousands of years. So this is my first approach, being, as you said, a very early days student. Now you're speaking specifically about social media. Like many, many other things, it could be used for huge, positive, amazing things. For example, when I Googled, depression, anxiety, joy, and I found that person that opened the door, I don't think I would ever been kind of able to access her if I didn't have that, quick in the moment. But as you said, the other side of it is like when you're getting obsessed about certain people on social media or you're comparing yourself, etc. So my job
I think part of the danger is that intellectually we know it's a construct. We know that no one's, and I myself, my teenage kids will laugh because we'll like have an annoying family fight, but we're in a pretty location. So we need to, snap and post the selfie. And of course, no one sees the behind the scenes. So it's a construct, and we know that intellectually, right? I know that people are not sharing their burnt food pictures on Instagram. And even the vulnerable, sort of honest approaches, we have no idea if that's really, and yet we know this intellectually, but the mind and the brain processes it as a reality.
Yes. And I think it all goes to the same place. So how we started the conversation, we said how, let's say, using myself, I appeared to be certain things, but inside, when you unveiled what was going on, The same thing, I educate my children. You never ever know what is going on in a person's life or in a family life. And your job or my job is to be very clear about your own world. So instead of trying to, let's say, fix everything around or repair, or like, what I do think I have some kind of control over is how I build, again, bitachon, how I build my children from within. So they have clarity about their own essence. And
so it's getting back to the inner work.
Inner work. Yeah, again, we should get them on the call as well. But like, sometimes they're like, oh, Emma, stop with the deep spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to.
My kids too. All
right?
5 of my kids. They're like, oh, like I'll say something to them. They're like, Mommy, what book are you reading?
Yeah, exactly. She's like, no, I just want you to drop me off. Like, don't go all schmoozy, right? All like deep stuff. But like on most days, they know that they have this whole world inside of them, and that world could never be, touched or ruined. But I also tell them how to maintain, that world. And speaking about social media, I guide my children. And listen, my control is, limited at some point, but I guide my children at what I think is good for them and what I think is not good for them. And by the way, I'm a huge believer in boundaries. So my children have limited access to certain applications. I would, I am very thoughtful about, what they use, when they use it. I give them guidance. I use these pairing programs that the different social media have. I see their content. I mean, I'm not like off you go. But I'm not going to ignore the fact that for parents managing this and getting involved in this and getting their children to kind of trust them and open of how they use social media is really important. And it's a thing. And it's and I'm discovering new ways and methods as I go. But the main thing I want to say is that I'm also part of that part of their life. I ask questions, I ask to see, and I make it very clear what I think is good or not good for them.
Mm-hmm. Social media brings up some really interesting questions. And one of them that seems to be intensified in the past few weeks is antisemitism. And it's wild, the influence that social media has on the world.
Yeah.
And, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok are really at the center of the world of contemporary modern society. And I think even though people blame social media, my personal opinion is that social media is just revealing people. And, if now we know it's more out in the open. So how do you feel as an Israeli? And I'm curious, you live in London.
Yes.
Could be perceived as a challenging city in some ways, rising anti-Semitism, just like New York and Philadelphia and everywhere, Europe, I think is really bad. What do you feel is the role of social media in either the aiding or combating anti-Semitism? And how does it feel to be a Jew in London right now?
So I'll start with the second question. It's been a tough, I don't remember exactly when it started. I guess 5 weeks. I think it was very concerning around the holiday of Shavuot, when stuff was going on the streets and we didn't feel safe. And that was, as a parent, as a mother, I found myself worried of my children going out and appearing, appeared to be, Jewish. And I never, in my 17 years in London, I never had this experience. And I know I have friends in New York and other places you mentioned that people were putting yarmulkes in their pockets. And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible place to be, and a very, very concerning place to be. So first of all, I'm also concerned, right? I'm in it. I see it, I sense it, I read it, I follow it, like many others. I think specifically on anti-Semitism and social media, as you said, I can't speak for all social media. I can only, speak specifically on like what we do at TikTok. I actually think I've joined TikTok about 6 months ago, and actually I've been deeply impressed by the commitment to fight any kind of hate speech, and including anti-Semitism, and the way that our community guidelines are structured and how they're being kind of forced. But unfortunately, because of, no system is perfect, no person is perfect, and no organization is perfect, sometimes there are slips, and that causes, heartache and damage and etc. And these things shouldn't happen. There is sometimes they do, but I think so. I'm actually very much proud of how TikTok are tackling it. And I'm not going to go into the different systems, but for example, I'll give you just one thing because I would like to share it. If anyone is typing into TikTok a kind of Holocaust denial, search words, etc., what they're actually going to get to is an information hub on Judaism, on how to fight anti-Semitism. So actually, if anyone searches something, let's say negative or denying the Holocaust, where they're actually going to get is educational information about Holocaust. And I mean, and
wow.
I don't know. I don't want to say
amazing.
Millions and millions and millions of views. I'm sorry, I don't know. Like, I don't have the exact numbers. Okay. But that just shows you the approach. And by the way,
wow.
If someone's looking into something negative, take them to something different, positive.
Wow.
So for me, that was really reassuring. And the company has different collaborations, but partnerships with different movements that are, fighting anti-Semitism. But listen, we can see what's going on different platforms and different things, and also dynamics that are playing out in different news outlets. And I really hope that there's going to be a wake up and actually realize that we should all care about fighting anti-Semitism, not only the Jewish community, everyone, because it could be this community and then others. And hate is bad. Hate is wrong, regardless of who is kind of targeted towards. So, by the way, with the messages in the book, part of my missions or my hope is that people will discover the beauty of Judaism, how inclusive it is. I wrote my book as a universal book. There is nothing in the book that can't potentially help or inspire anyone, regardless of what they believe in or don't believe in or their way of life. It's a completely universal book because I actually think that Judaism is its wisdom is universal. But as you said, it's been kept for a secret, and we have an opportunity to share it now with the world.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I would definitely, I think I mentioned, add it to my required reading for being a thinking person, about being mindful, about being brave, about being whole, spiritual. It's incredibly informative and inspiring. And in our last few minutes, just to take us back full circle on the heels of discussing anti-Semitism and your anxiety that you suffered from for most of your life, being a grandchild of 4 Holocaust survivors, daughter of one of the leading forensic pathologists in Israel, what would your message be to those of us who are anxious, either about anti-Semitism or changes in the world, or, just the struggles of life? What Jewish wisdom would you share with us?
Oh, don't know if I can answer that. I think I'll try. I'll tell you how I tell it to myself. Like, fear is also a good thing, right? Fear keeps us, on our awake. Like, and sometimes we really have to fear, going back to that classic when a lion or, is chasing you, like, this is proper fear moment, right? Run, rescue like, save your life. So I think fear is important as an instinct. I think anxiety is about, imagining or worrying about things that could happen or might happen, right? And like living an anxious life. So I think these times that we're in at the moment are quite unique because there is real fear. There were moments in the last 5-6 weeks that people were attacked and did feel that fear that led them to wanting to hide who they are as an identity. So these are very unique times. My personal approach is, first of all, I'm going to try my best to repair, to say positive things, to play my role. That's what I feel I can do personally. And other people have different roles to do in this. I think that unfortunately, if you look back, or fortunately at our history, we've been through a lot as an Am. right? Am Israel has been through a lot. And I think Barry Weiss was saying the other day, if you want to understand what's happening, just look back. Just look back in all our history. I mean, the years are going on, but the story is not, it's evolving. It's not a very different story. So I know I'm not answering your question exactly, but I think one of the things that I'm saying is like, how can I make this better personally, or what can I do? And personally, I feel it's like spreading positivity. And also, but being very honest about what's happening and being very proud and connected. I think there is a risk because of what's going on that people will maybe less want to be connected to who they are, or they want to hide who they are. And I don't think that's going to help anyone. I think if anything, we have to remind ourselves who we are, what we're here to do individually and collectively, and then go for it and do something meaningful and bring more light. That's my approach.
That is so beautiful. And I would love to hang out with you all day. I'm sure you have nothing else to do. So I will let everybody know one last time how highly I recommend Michal Oshman's book, What Would You Do If You Weren't Afraid? And we thank you so much for sharing your message of positivity, of light, of inner discovery. Your journey is so inspirational. And, since now you're famous, that makes it even better. And I think it's just, honestly, for me, one key takeaway is if Michal can find time to study Parsha, if Michal can engage in a spiritual odyssey and invest in herself and in her learning and in her self-improvement with all of her demands and everything that you have going on in your life, I think that really inspires all of us that we could do it too. So I thank you. And I thank all of you, our viewers and our listeners. Thank you for joining us on Beyond Belief. I'm Gavura Davis from Aish Global, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.